Good morning. Welcome. This morning we're going to be doing one of our Godly Play stories, and it is taken from The Complete Guide to Godly Play, Volume 2, published by Church Publishing Incorporated. And for this story, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And I first need an underlayment. And I'm going to fill my screen so you can see what we're doing. And for this story, I need my desert box. Now remember, this isn't the whole desert, it's just a piece of the desert. But we use the desert box because so many important things happened in the desert. The desert is a dangerous place. There's no food and water in the desert. And without food and water, people can die. Nothing grows there, and when the wind blows, it changes the shape of the desert, and people can get lost. People do not go into the desert unless they absolutely have to. The people of God were living in an area where the rains didn't come. There was no water, so nothing would grow. There was no grain, so they couldn't make bread. Everyone was hungry. The children cried in their sleep. So the mothers and fathers decided that they would leave the land to try to find a new land where they could find food and work. It was a hard journey across the desert. And even though it was dangerous, they made the trip and they kept going. It was a difficult trip. But finally, they made it across. And they got to a new land called Egypt. Now, the king of Egypt was called a pharaoh. And when they got to Egypt, they did find food and work. But Pharaoh trapped them. They couldn't go home again. They couldn't leave. They had to do whatever the Pharaoh told them to do. They had to live where the Pharaoh said to live. They had to go to bed when the Pharaoh said to go to bed. They had to get up when the Pharaoh said to get up. They had to eat what the Pharaoh said to eat. They had to do the work that the Pharaoh said to do. They had to do everything that the Pharaoh said. They were slaves. One of the people of God, named Moses, went to the Pharaoh and said, "Let my people go." The Pharaoh said, "No." Moses went back several times, and each time he went back to ask the Pharaoh to let his people go, the Pharaoh always said, "No." Then many strange things began to happen in Egypt. Moses went back again, but still the Pharaoh said, "No." Then something terrible happened. The oldest boy in each Egyptian family, including the Pharaoh's family, died. But the oldest boy in the families of the people of God did not die. They made a special mark on their doors using the blood of a lamb, and the angel of death passed over them. When Moses went to the Pharaoh after this and asked, "Let my people go," the Pharaoh said, "Yes." The people hurried to get ready. They packed all of their belongings. They packed their bread, but they didn't have time to put leaven in their bread to let it rise and get fluffy, so it was like the bread that you and I eat. This bread was flat, and it was called matzah. And any time that you eat this bread nowadays, you can remember this story. So the people went, and they left and went as fast as they could out of Egypt because they did not want the Pharaoh to change his mind. But then they heard a sound that filled them with terror. It was a sound that made the ground shake, and it sounded like thunder. The Pharaoh's army was coming after them. Pharaoh's army pushed them up until they were against the water. And they were stuck, and they did not know what to do. But then, God came so close to Moses, and Moses came so close to God, that Moses knew how to get his people across the water to freedom. This one is a little confused, maybe. This one is running. This one is maybe a little bit scared. This one might be happy. Once the people of God were safely across, the waters closed behind them, and they were free. The Pharaoh's army could not get to them. When the people of God were free on the other side, they were so happy. They just had to give thanks to God. And Miriam led the dancing. Now I wonder, what part of this story did you like best? I wonder what part of this story is most important. I wonder what part of this story is about you, or who might you be in this story? And I wonder if there's any part of this story that we could leave out and still have all the story that we need. Thank you for joining us this morning for our Children's Chapel story, and we look forward to seeing you again soon at St. Margaret's.